When you get booked on WrestleMania, you've gotta smash it. So much worth is put into the show, expectations are far higher than usual, which means you're gonna be judged even more than you would be usually. That's not massively fair, but those are the breaks. Given that we have years of this event under our belts though, it stands to reason not every attempt is going to fly, so here are some of the worst. Because yes, I am Simon from What Culture, please remember to hug yourself today and hit the subscribe button, and this is the 10 worst WrestleMania gimmick matches. Number 10, Dean Ambrose vs Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 32. The fact I was at this Mania and still forgot this was a street fight kinda sums it up. It did not hit home. And it is by no means a disaster, but when it comes to what people were hoping for, was a little bit of a letdown. There is reasons for this, or seemingly so. Ambrose was very vocal about how a lot of his ideas were ignored, whereas Lesnar was planning a UFC fight, so was likely trying to protect himself. When you remind yourself of the crazy things Jon Moxley has done in AEW, you can see why he was a bit peeved. It really is the lack of weapons that underlines all this. You get a kendo stick, a chair, a fire extinguisher, and I think Brock decided that he was his own weapon. But it's a shame because, as Dean hinted, most of the spots he wanted to do would have seen him get murked, so it's not like Lesnar was in danger. So it's one of those I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed feelings, because this really should have been a lot better than it was. Number 9, the Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania 17. I cannot lie, I love this. You get Bobby the Brain Heenan on commentary, Repo Man is in the thing, and it is truly ridiculous. This is all I want from wrestling, but come on now. While this is entertaining, it's also a bit like watching a car wreck. Most of the participants can't move anymore, and the Iron Sheik wins simply because he wasn't allowed to be thrown over the top rope. It's why, as Heenan makes out, it took him a genuine decade to get into the thing. So this is pure nostalgia, but given it's happening on WrestleMania 17, a pay-per-view aimed at a flurry of new fans that likely didn't recognize any of these faces, I can only imagine what some people thought. I mean, how the flub do you explain Kamala? It is certainly fun, but still stands out on this card as every other match is just pure fire. I will always stand by it, but at the same time, I get it. Number 8, Bob Backlund vs Bret Hart at WrestleMania 11. Bob Backlund surprised everybody when he returned to the WWE in 1992. Not sure it was on anybody's agenda, but fair play to the guy. He made the necessary adjustments and found a way to fit in. Good for him. It meant he was going to get a featured match at Mania, which was against Bret Hart, but sadly this I Quit contest just didn't do much for anyone. Once again, we probably expected more because of who was involved. And don't get me wrong, there are some good holds here and there, but it is really slow and doesn't feel like it should be on this stage. Roddy Piper is also the overly vocal referee who asks the guys if they're done almost every few seconds, and the only real highlight is that Hart wins. The other way round would have been ridiculous, but you never know for sure, and all the noises that Bob makes when he's in submission holds kind of makes it sound like he's gargling mouthwash. So you can see how this could have been alright, but it just wasn't. Number 7, Aki Bono versus The Big Show at WrestleMania 21. I mean, if you wanted to see The Big Show in a sumo thong, then you were winning, but this just felt way too gimmicky for the biggest show of the year. But we got rid of the ropes, made it look like a proper sumo affair, but I don't know, it just didn't work. And look, let's not be unfair here, Akabono was a proper star, but I'm not sure that translated to a Western audience who didn't hold him in the same regard. There's also a huge build, and then we're done in about a minute. A show is bullied out the ring. Feels a little bit pointless. It gets worse too because there are rumors that WWE only did this as punishment towards Paul White because he had put on a lot of weight, but come on man, maybe just have a chat with the guy instead. If this was meant to be funny, it wasn't. Number 6, Edge vs Randy Orton at WrestleMania 36. I mean, it certainly didn't help that there were no fans, and in a desperate attempt to salvage the show, we had to think outside the box. That meant a last man standing match between Edge and Randy Orton was booked, and I tell ya, it is just too long. If you shave 15 minutes off this, it would be nowhere near this list, but it goes way over 40 minutes, and I'm not sure anybody needed that, especially because it plays out to zero noise. You quickly remember why a crowd is so important. For the most part, they just punch each other as the head as they brawl throughout the performance center, but all the big spots they do needed a reaction, and obviously you don't get it. It is quite literally played out to silence. Their Backlash affair was far better because WWE learned from their mistakes, but I don't think you can really blame Randy or the rated R superstar. They did what they could. This just needed a much better edit. Number 5, Torrie Wilson versus Candice Michelle at WrestleMania 22. You probably don't even remember this, which means it's kind of unfair to put it in this list at all, but then you recall it was a Playboy pillow fight, And yep, it's gotta be included. The concept alone makes your face palm, and to this day, I don't get why we were meant to think a pillow was gonna do any damage, and yet Torrie Wilson and Candice Michelle have to set it like it's a gun. Obviously, this was done because WWE for a good old while wanted to ensure it served horny teenage boys, and that's what it is. 4 minutes of titillation. To be fair, Torrie and Candice do what they can, but it's just so obvious what this is. I would much rather they would have let them have an actual match, but nope. That was never going to happen. Before Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26. There's more to this than what happens in the ring, which is why I shall always give it a pass. I'm sure Bret Hart needed it to move on from 1997, and just seeing him back in the company was surreal. I truly thought it would never come to pass. You also have to remember the Hitman was dealing with serious health issues, so the fact he even made it back should be applauded. It's also why it's a part lumberjack, part street fight match with as many bells as whistles as we could possibly throw at it. When watched in that sense, it's fine, but otherwise, this ain't it. It feels like it goes on forever, even though it's actually 11 minutes, and the outside interference from the rest of the Harts just feels overplayed. I also cannot forgive WWE for not allowing Bret to use his original theme, and that's the real problem here. I don't care if Natalya and the rest get a revamped tune, but not Hart. His 90s music is the best, and we weren't allowed it once. It's nonsense, and it makes me mad. Clearly. Number 3, The Fiend versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 37. All we really need to say is that there was a box-like structure at ringside. As soon as Michael Cole had uttered those words, I knew we were doomed. We also saw Bray Wyatt somehow transform from burned Fiend to normal Fiend as he walked through some magical restoration tunnel, and all of this is true. What is going on? Randy Orton also wins, which goes against basic wrestling storytelling, and the finish of weird Alexa Bliss turning her back on the Fiend, I've just no flubbing idea. This was never followed up on either, and even those involved thought it was nuts. It's also only 6 minutes following a feud that went on forever, and again, it saw one man set another on fire, and this was our payoff? Sheesh. Number 2, The Undertaker versus the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 15. We could use some of the same words to describe this because, in short, The Undertaker and the Big Boss Man fought inside Hell in a Cell for no reason when the dead man took his name literally and tried to murder his opponent. Yep. It's been over 20 years and I still don't know the deal here because after the Phenom had defeated the Big Boss Man, he quite literally hangs him from the top of the cage as we see our police officer friend stop moving. So the insinuation was he was dead? I mean, this is frankly unreal. The feud prior was also focused on Taker versus Vince McMahon, so the Boss Man feels like he's just shoved in there for fun. And even though we're using this stipulation, the fans don't make any noise. This really isn't very fun. Number 1, the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal at WrestleMania 25. So this is just unfair to the women's roster of 2009. It's good we found a way to get them all on the card, but this is the definition of an afterthought and not fitting of an entire division. They deserve more, as the powers that be would eventually understand. They're also played to the ring by Kid Rock, which is just strange, and the Battle Royal itself is nothing. There ain't no sub-stories, no plan to get somebody over. Bodies are just hurled to the mat at a rapid rate. You also get quite the controversial winner as Santina Marella has their hand raised, which was indeed Santino Marella in drag. Now at the time this was kind of amusing as Santino was just good at this stuff, but when you remember the bigger problems, it was not the best idea. It also just sells the rest of the roster short because the whole thing is treated like a gag. And you can do that, of course you can, but when this is the sole focus as it pertains to your female performers, well then, it is just a slap in the face. Know of any other awful WrestleMania gimmick matches? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share the video, and smash that subscribe button. Then you can go to whatculture.com, which is our website with even more articles. You can watch another video on YouTube, and you can follow us on social media, because you have the power. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always. You take care of yourself, and go look out the window because I'm staring at you. No, I'm not. Yet.